Hello everyone and welcome back. My name's X and we are back with another video for you today. This one's going to be a quite lengthy one. I've been seeing all these major YouTubers doing these little wish lists of what they want to see in Halo Infinite, and even though I have some things that I want to see, I also wanted to see what the community wanted, what they were voicing about, what they wanted to see, and not just what opinionated people that with a little bit of bias of what they wanted to see. So I decided, to hold multiple polls and have people vote on it and tally up the ideas to see where people stood on this, and looked at a bunch of different sides of the community and all together what they wanted to see for Halo Infinite. So when I did this, there was just no way that I could do a top 10s feature list, because this was just too big and I just did not want to cut down to 10. It just would not cover up the community as well of like all the different things that they wish to see. So I decided I'm going to up the cowbell and I'm going to put this up to 50.
Guess what? I got a fever, and the only prescription is more cowbell.
Kind of a little reference to the Halo 2 and Halo 3 ranking system. I believe we should, put all the great ideas in there, even if, obviously not all of them are going to get heard. If at least a good 20-30% of these are, at least heard, then Halo's on the right track if 3 for 3, goes through with this. Hopefully those are more on the top popular list here near the end of the video. Personally, I love Halo lists to go on for an infinite amount, but we obviously have to make a cutoff here. This video is going to be a little long, and I'm going to try and avoid diving deep into each individual one, as this is going to be quite long, and I don't want to, do some of these too in depth when I've done them for the Halo MCC and Halo 5. So I'll probably just link those at the end of the video if you want to watch those two, and you'll probably get a better understanding of what those lists are about, what people want, and you should check those out as well because they're pretty good. But I'll try and keep each one relatively brief as best as possible. With that being said, let's get started with the video. And starting off our list here is Knife Final Stand gameplay. Now this might just be a custom game thing. It's purely aesthetic. It has nothing to do with extra boost or damage or anything like that. But a cool idea is if your primary and your secondary run completely out of ammo, you have nothing, that instead of just running around with an empty weapon, that you instead pull out one of those knives the Spartans keep on hand, or if you're an elite, that little energy blade that you have on the side. And basically you just go using melees when you go to punch and whatnot. Instead you're using a knife. It'd be pretty cool. It's again purely an aesthetic thing. It wouldn't have anything to do with that, like giving you extra damage. I remember a time in Halo 3 when I was playing Infection multiplayer, and I had managed to run out of all ammo, which usually doesn't really happen in most Infection games that you play. Usually you still have some ammo before you end up getting killed, but I had run out and I was on last man standing, and I had that moment where I just felt like I could just drop my weapon and just pull out a knife blade and say, hey, let's go and let's fight this. And I ran in there and just beat the crap out of everyone. Unfortunately, I didn't get to have the ability to pull out a knife. I just went in there, just melee the infected with my empty shotgun. I managed to get like one or two of them before they ended up getting me. But I thought it was pretty cool, the idea that this is it. I'm just gonna pull out this knife and just go to town with it.
This. All right, the great journey ends here.
Next up is swap abilities. So some people have mentioned this idea that they want to be able to change out the abilities that you start with. I know there is this argument over fair starts, and maybe it might just be something that's a custom game thing or a social game thing, but the idea of being able to swap out your abilities. So instead of saying you don't want a thruster pack, you want to swap that slot with a jetpack or a jump pack or anything like that. It'll just be able to swap out those abilities instead of like just having to be forced with the abilities that are all the same. Some people want to actually be able to change that out, because I think that would be a cool idea. Instead of like having a rapid ability to be able to thrust, you have just a jetpack ability that obviously has a long cooldown time but a longer use, and you get to go other places a little bit more easily. Some people want that, some people don't, but I think everyone's got their opinions on that, and I think this is pretty interesting idea. Next up we have here is improved audio from gun sounds and music. Now if everyone remembers back in the early years when Halo 4 came out, some of the gun sounds just did not sound that great, and Halo 5 maybe has some bad gun sounds, but overall they did improve, especially with Halo 2 Anniversary. Those gun sounds were pretty on par and really good. But also when it came to the music, a lot of times when it came to Halo 4 there was like a complete divide where there was really good music that I absolutely love, and then there's other music it was just like, this did not sound like Halo. Halo 5 also had a little bit like that, but it looks like with Halo Infinite, they are really showing a classic feel with their music, and I'm hoping that's the vibe that they're going for, that the music's gonna really get that kind of a classic feeling of Halo back. Next up on the list here that people kept talking about, even though it's already been confirmed, but people kept saying that they definitely want to see this, which again, it's already been confirmed, is co-op split screen. I know originally that when it came to co-op split screen, the reason why they got rid of it from a technical standpoint is when you multiplied more screens, whether it be 2 up to 4, it actually starts lowering the pixel count. I remember one of my friends showing me this back in Halo Reach when they did co-op, and showed me that how from a further distance you couldn't even see targets that would show up that you could see perfectly fine without split screen, and that was actually pretty interesting, something I saw there. But I understand from people who just don't care and they just want to have that experience to be able to play with other friends and have split screen. So again, yeah, it's already been confirmed and it's going to be in, so we're glad to hear that. But that was also one of the things people really wanted to see for Halo Infinite. Next up we have here is overpowered or uber variant weapons and vehicles. This may just be a forge or custom game thing, or even maybe an action sack thing from Matchmaking, which would be pretty cool. But it's basically the aspect of taking every best quality that was ever of this certain version of weapon and mashing it all together. So for example, take the assault rifle. It has the Halo 2 anniversary damage that was pretty damn amazing, but with the Halo CE ammo count, but with the Halo 5 accuracy. Just that'd be pretty interesting if we had a version like that where it took every great aspect of that certain weapon, mashed it together, and we called it an overpowered or uber variant, and it's just something that you can play for custom games. It would be a cool little thing, not too big, but I think it's a pretty interesting idea, and a lot of other people seem to like that idea. So I think that's pretty cool. It might be a good idea that Halo that 343 should look into something like that, because it might be actually something interesting to do for an action sack or something like that. So I think it might be pretty interesting. Next up we have here's Matchmaking Blacklist, or blacklisting, either way you want to go with, but it is mostly if they decide to not to remove friendly fire from multiplayer. But even if they do remove friendly fire, this would still be also good to have, which would be an alternative way to help improve the matchmaking experience by adding players which you don't want to line up with that are constantly doing unsportsmanlike conduct in games. Reporting really does not work, let's be honest with that, and blocking only blocks communication. It used to work for Halo MCC that blocked people, but people abused it and blocked people that were really good just so they wouldn't line up with them, and it was basically punishing good players. The idea of this concept is only to punish negative gameplay characteristics like team killing, quitting, suiciding, and idling in the games that you actually play. So you can't just pick a random person. You have to actually have that person in the playlist that you were playing with on that match, and it has to be something like very recent in order to blacklist them if they actually did some of those things. Even if they didn't get kicked for it, if they did it like once or twice and they have like a habit of just team killing to get your weapon and doing some sort of other negative things, that's the only way they can be added to the list. This would help also, make it so that even if they didn't get auto booted, they're still being held to a high standard of if you don't be respectful to your teammates and you build this reputation, you're not going to be able to find anyone to play with, because no one's going to want to line up with you, and it's going to have consequences, and it's going to have a deeper impact, and it's going to carry a heavy weight down the line of the reputation that you play with other people. If you get a really bad reputation, this will be how people remember you, and you can't find any matches. And so when they go to the forums and complain about this, of why they can't find any matches and whatnot, they can easily look at their history and that they're getting blacklisted, and they can just simply give them the Obi-Wan Kenobi response.
You have done that yourself.
And the next one we have up here is about removing party chats or making it that mics only chat when it comes to competitive arenas, especially when I don't 100% agree on this, but I can understand people's point of view when it comes to the competitive aspect of the community, that it's really annoying when you're playing competitive arena matches when no one's using mics or they're just sitting in party chat and there's no communication. In competitive matches, you need to be able to communicate with your teammates, so they need to start contributing. And so I understand why a lot of competitive players want this, because it's annoying when you don't have teammates that aren't communicating because of these two reasons. So I understand that. I may not 100% agree on it, but I get where they're coming from. Next up we have here is improved theater mode. We all understand that Halo 5's theater mode is absolutely the worst, and I really hope they do improve on it. I understand that they explained the reason why it can't be fixed, because how it's seen from the game's perspective and not from the player's perspective, and so I understand that. So I really hope though in Halo Infinite they actually try and fix this though, and that we get the original features we used to have back in Halo Reach and Halo 3 with all the original features added into theater mode, plus on top of that new abilities like easily being able to save full matches and being able to upload it straight to things like YouTube or Vimeo or whatever websites real easily, or at least be able to download them really easy to our computers. That would be really helpful, and even upload pictures straight to whichever sites we want to. I'm not sure if anyone even uses Tumblr, but Instagram, anything that you guys want to do. You want to show cool pictures of you guys doing some amazing kills for videos and pictures, and you know, just gameplay stuff. It'd be great if we could have a way to just easily upload this stuff and it wouldn't take, you know, a whole hassle. Back in the days of Bungie, we had to, you know, use the whole render farm thing that they had, but this would be cool if they, you know, had it so that now with today's technology, be able to just directly download these videos and picture files and whatnot, directly upload it to our social media accounts that we want to use and show off some of our cool gameplay. And this would be more a way not only to help Halo with almost basically us free advertising for them basically, but it's also something that we would like because we could show off all the cool enjoyment fun moments that we had playing games, which is a good way to boost Halo's reputation.
Shut that kid up! Don't tell me how to raise my child. I hate babies.
Oh, come on! Take the little brat to the lobby!
Alright, that's it. Get him, Junior.
Whoa!
I didn't know this was going to be an action movie. Ew. NC-17 action movie.
Oh, God, my spine! Put it back in! Put it back in!
Next up we have here's remove projectile curving. Whether it's hit scan or projectile based, it doesn't matter. Either way, people hate the fact that Halo 5 added in this bullet curving mechanic where it allows people to say, well, at least you were close enough, so we'll give you the kill, which is just absolutely irritating because they weren't on the spot, they weren't directly on there, whether it be hit scan or whether it be bullet projectile, it wasn't even close, but the game's pretty much saying, well, at least you tried, so here's the kill, and they're not actually earning it. And that's really frustrating because that makes it so that people are less skilled at the game and can get kills, and they're trying to justify this because of the fast-paced movement of Halo 5. Hopefully they do alter other stuff, which we're going to get later on to the video for requests, but that's just something that I think 343 needs to look into and removing that, because that's just not fair to make bullets just curve towards the target of the person's head with a sniper rifle, even though the person clearly missed with it, just because they need to compensate for the movement speed. Next up we have here is no more loot box mechanic. It hasn't been 100% confirmed. People are already celebrating way too early when all they said was no real world money currency loot boxes, but it doesn't say anything about not adding it in as an in-game currency that you can pay with real money, and then you can buy it with the in-game currency by loot boxes. So they didn't really 100% deny loot boxes will be in Halo Infinite. Hopefully they don't. Really, I am okay with more the idea of cosmetic armors instead, and that, you know, they have at least maybe 90% is prioritized microtransactions, but the really good armors are actually ones that you have to actually earn, and just the regular majority are ones that you can just buy instead, or you can get with in-game currency. But either way, it's not taken away from any of the good armors, as well as skins and other things. But other things like that are really good have to be unlocked with ranks, challenges, achievements, things that are doable and not, you know, necessarily dependent on specific multiplayer modes that could die out eventually and not be obtainable later. There is a possibility even going back to DLC if they decide to do the matchmaking composer with this game, if that returns. But I think there's still a high chance that they're going to still end up doing cosmetics in some kind of way, because unfortunately this is the unfortunate game market we are in. But one of the big things that people are definitely requesting is they do not want to see a loot box system in the next Halo Infinite game. Next up we have here is no grindy progressive rank system, and when I'm talking about that system, I'm not talking about the competitive skill rank system that goes up and down. I'm talking about the one that always goes up. So Halo 3's General, Halo Reach's Inheritor, Halo 4's SR-130, and Halo 5's Level 152. Those are way too high up in what they're asking for when it comes to Halo Reach and Halo 5, and that burned out a lot of people in the game. We need to not make it too low as like Halo 4, but we need to not go as high as Inheritor and Halo Reach. That was just something that burned out way too many players. We need something that's more along the lines of Halo 3's general rank system, where it's just enough that it's not going to just kill the players. Then if you casually play enough, you're going to get it in about a year or two. Next up we have here is balanced competitive and casual multiplayer matchmaking. No more of this competitive only focused design that 343 has been setting out for the new series, with Halo 4 being competitive focused only and casual put aside, and then Halo 5 even put more competitive, and this talk about Halo Infinite will be even more esports competitive focused multiplayer. We need to go back to the days of how it originally was, where it was both casual and competitive experience, and unfortunately lately, you know, competitive has been getting all the attention and the casuals are just getting the cold shoulder, which is actually the majority of this Halo community. So basically doing so is basically not focusing on making a matchmaking experience for multiplayer that feels inclusive to both. A lot of the super try-hard competitive players, not all of them, but you know, some of them out there, are saying no, it should be completely competitive, super competitive focus, and casuals go back and play campaign. Well, those people need to consider the reality that the majority of people that play Halo games are not competitive as them, and they have a casual experience, and they've always had that since the very beginning, and that's what people are trying to hope for with Halo Infinite. Next up we have here is the no hidden ranked system. If you all remember some videos that they talked about that Halo 5 does have a hidden rank system, it's really annoying that I've experienced this where I get lined up with people that are MVP players when I'm only a diamond player, and it's really frustrating just because I'm doing somewhat good that they're going to line me up with MVP players. I even managed to line up with the MVP 1 and 2 in SWAT, and I think that's ridiculous that I'm getting lined up against them and I'm not even in their rank. If you're not going to give me an MVP rank, do not line me up with them. I think that's ridiculous. I think the best way to kind of do this is kind of I will do a video later to go in more depth here, but the more simplify it is that the arena system should still have that competitive time to rank of bronze through MVP arena ranking system, but on top of that there should be a number level system that you can definitely see, and it's associated to who you're playing with, and that's one that never actually resets after a month or two. That thing always stays, and that just shows you when you're going up and down, and I think it should be, you know, similar to Halo 2 and Halo 3 ranking, but it shouldn't have a level 50 cap. It should just keep going up infinite, kind of with the game's name there, but it also takes away two of the big problems here that Halo 3 had, which was there was boosters that would boost accounts and then sell them, and they would sell those 50s, and little kids would buy them and say, look, I'm pro, I got a level 50 account. And then you had those other people that basically they played too much matchmaking, so they could never rank up because it would take 3 or 4 games to rank up, where normal people would take like 1 or 2, and it just caused too many problems of ranking up. And I have that system now where I've played so much Halo 3 matchmaking that I'll never be able to gain a 50 because I'll have to play 4 or 5 matches of winning straight without losing in order to go up 1 rank, and if I lose 1 or 2, I go back down. It's just absolutely a hassle. So if it was an infinite and a way they rework the algorithm so that you can either go up and down but it's never a resetting one, this would really help on top of an arena rank. Next up we have here is original mobility and physics. Now I'm not necessarily talking about sprinting and whatnot. I'm talking about the way your movement was in Halo 2 and Halo 3 really felt very fluid. The way you jumped, the way you moved, it all felt natural. Halo CE, it didn't really feel that much. It felt a little clunky, but Halo Reach, Halo 4, Halo 5 and onward, it didn't feel natural the way your character moved. It always felt clunky in the way you walked around, and I didn't like that feeling. I like the the smooth, fluid movement that my Spartan moved like, especially in Halo 3. I like the way that it felt like when I churned and I was walking. It felt very natural when I was moving around the map, and I like that kind of feeling. And also the physics I liked, where when I hit boxes, they really moved in the way they should. When in Halo Reach and whatnot, when you're trying to hit these boxes, they like barely move like a couple inches, but you're a full-on Spartan meleeing this with force, and yet when you're meleeing it, you're barely doing any damage, and things don't break as easily and whatnot. I like when you can melee boxes and move them around doing that. It was really nice. I really wish they'd bring that kind of thing back, where when you melee stuff, they actually had that kind of movement and physics that Halo 3 and Halo 2 had. Next up we have here is revamped abilities and mechanics. So we're talking about something I did like a video on about how to fix sprint here with bringing in stopping power. So we have things like charged up or build up sprint with also other abilities like clamber, losing grip, and other abilities being affected by stopping power, as well as another effect to make it so that you can't overuse these abilities and make it so that the gameplay is just way too fast paced that players can't keep up, but at the same time it's not resorting to slowing down the gameplay at the same time. If you watch that video, it'll better explain this a lot better, but basically revamping these abilities to make them more balanced in the way that they play in the multiplayer, and so that's not taking the game all the way back to the original days, which it's not going to work for everyone. everyone, just for the classic fans, and I don't think that's the way they should go about this. But at the same time, we also have to acknowledge that there are issues with the mechanics themselves, and also with the whole stopping power, it'd be also great not just affect abilities, but also whether a player crouching and aiming, that it doesn't just one little shot cause them to stand up and descope, but that you have to actually do a significant amount of damage to descope and decrouch a player in order for those effects to kick in. Next up we have here is bring back blood. And this is pretty simple. People want to see blood. It's just weird with Halo games now going on forward. There's just almost no blood really being seen, or very minuscule. When, you know, the early days like Halo CE to Halo 3, there was just tons of blood, and it seems like a lot of the fan base really wants to see that brought back. Next up we have here is social space clan meetup areas. So these two things are not things that should be in custom games yet. We see a lot of it, and I do see that there is a demand for it, and I'm gonna, you know, at least put it out there, even though I don't really like clans and I don't like social spaces. But if people are asking for this, I think this is a fair way to kind of solve the problem, because the problem is custom games are getting loaded with these things and no one wants to actually see them there, and they're just taking up room. And it'd be nice to have areas where there are just called clan, you know, hangout recruitment areas, and then you have the areas of social space gathering things. Again, I'll never use this thing. I really don't like it, but you know, if there's a demand, unlike people that are, you know, complaining about battle royale and saying I don't want to play battle royale, so it shouldn't be in the game because I don't want it. I don't really want social spaces, but you know what, if other people want to use that, I respect the people's idea that there's a good majority out there that want to see this in there. So I think that that'd be a good place for to have these little hangouts and clan group areas that are taking over, you know, custom game browsers in Halo 5, instead actually have their own little spot to hang out in. And this would be great, and maybe they bring back the Halo 2 clan page recruitment and just keep that stuff out of the custom game section.
Listen, I know why you choose to have your little group therapy sessions.
Next up we have here is day and night time lapse. I've seen this in the Halo Infinite trailer that they kind of hinted at, and even with that new concept art that they came out with, it looks like something that may be something with this campaign that's going to be something we're going to see with day and night time lapsing the campaign. But it could be even an option, maybe even in custom games and forging. Who knows? It would be pretty interesting. But it looks like they kind of hinted that in the trailer. I'm not saying that's a guaranteed, but it's a thing that a lot of people seem to have voted for. So it seems like something that the community really would be interested in seeing this idea going through.
I'm a god with this. I can control day and night.
I don't know about that. Okay, fair enough.
Next up is open world campaign, which right next to, you know, day and night time lapse is this idea that people want to see an open world campaign where it's not all linear, that you have to go to point A to point B, that you have multiple routes, which kind of in the original Halo CE kind of had that aspect to it. It'd be nice to see if they kind of give a little more of that open world feeling where you can travel whichever way you want to get to locations, instead of having to be set to say you have to go this way to get to this spot. And it seems like it's being hinted in some of the released concept art that may be the direction they might go in, and it seems like the community really is wanting to see that kind of idea being implemented. Next up we have here is gameplay over lore with an improved story. People want to see that new art style that brings back the classic look with the improved Promethean elite designs that have been supposedly confirmed, which hopefully that is the case, because the elite designs in Halo 4 and Halo 5 were not really well liked by the community, and also the improved Promethean design, hopefully that they, you know, do away with that. Everything has to be this metallic look with red glow, and they don't, you know, try and excuse lore all the time, and hopefully they actually do something interesting that, you know, other people like Fabian and Late Night Gaming have brought up. And hopefully the solid story focus on Master Chief is long and very well thought out, without having to tell people that they have to read the books to understand it, but at the same time it's not too complex so that people can understand what's going on, and no quick time events or button interactions, and that when it comes to boss fights, that they're not just cutscenes like Jewel and Dama's fight, but more like Arbiter and Tartarus, where it's, you know, an introduction cutscene necessarily, but at the same time once the cutscene ends, it goes straight to you're taking over control and you're gonna fight this, and not just some scripted cutscene. Next up is introduce new species. I want to see, you know, new species being introduced. One of the, you know, interesting species that would be cool to see introduced in the campaign would be the Drenal or the Sharkoi. They were, you know, pretty interesting. There's some other, you know, races that I saw that were deleted that were pretty cool. When I used to look at the wiki of all these deleted characters, and some of them look interesting, some of them look kind of dumb, but the Charkoi were the very interesting ones. They were like hunters, but instead of using a pair of two, they were a lot bigger, a lot stronger, and they just were by themselves, which I thought would be interesting as a different kind of way of fighting them, and what else might see with new species being entered in. So hopefully, I can't wait to see what they have to offer in Halo Infinite. Next up is reward for saving allies. Maybe that they add to your support for the next mission. So if you have 3 Marines that you saved at the very end of that mission, the next mission, even though there might be 2 Marines with you, those 3 other Marines that you saved get added on. So now you have 5 Marines. Either that, or also maybe some of the missions instead carry over to give you some sort of reward, like maybe a special weapon or something that only gets added for doing a special reward that carries over into the next mission. That would be something interesting, and also be able to see your players' health. The bots, how much health these Marines have left, like they did in Halo Reach for those campaign missions. They were pretty cool what Bungie did, and I think that'd be something cool that they should do for Halo Infinite as well. So a lot of other people agreed to this idea, and I think it's a pretty interesting idea that they should try out, because I used to be one of those people that love to try and save every single Marine if possible. Next up we have here is remastered popular classic maps. A lot of interesting things that people threw around here was some like revamps of Blood Gulch and Coagulation, or some people threw in Backwash with a 3rd level floor that was a concept idea that a fan made for Halo 2 Anniversary. Unfortunately it never got made, but I think that'd be pretty interesting to have a 3rd floor backwash and whatnot. So it's just adding to some of the classic maps that we really loved. It would be nice to see some of these classic maps get remastered and brought back, which would be really interesting to see, as well as new ones. Next up is remastered classic armors, vehicles, and weapons. Some people have voiced some weapons that they want to see, or some vehicles they want to see brought back, or even armors that Spartans had, like we're talking about like the Halo 2 Spectre, the AA Wraith, the Halo 1 Fuel Rod gun, the Recon armor, all those things that people want to see like brought back with a classic look, but kind of revamped, kind of in a Halo 2 Anniversary kind of way. But it'd be nice to see that for Halo Infinite, and I think that's a cool route to go, along with some of the classic popular maps, and also again hoping that they even introduce new things as well. Next up we have here is customizable HUD and GUI. It would be nice to be able to change your visual reticule, how it looked, and what color it was, and how the HUD looked as well, and be able to change that both with the colors and the way everything's set up, and the field of view to be adjusted, and the weapon offset settings. Halo Online showed off this cool thing when people were messing around with it. I saw some YouTube videos of this, and basically I thought this was very cool, and I think that Halo Infinite should go along the same lines of this. And apparently a lot of the community has also voiced that they would also be would love to be able to have this ability. Next up is improved heads-up display features. On top of being able to change the colors and whatnot, is also improvements to the HUD, which would be really nice to be able to have things like a better 3D motion tracker, like the Halo 5 early concept art. I know that might it looks like it might be something difficult to actually make into multiplayer and forged maps and whatnot, but it'd be really cool if they could actually make something like this, because this would look far more better and more improved with a 3D feel to it, being able to track people above you, below you, and see the environment. So it'd be really cool if they could do something like that. On top of that, it'd be interesting if they might maybe incorporate a mechanic of a reverse camera for characters. They can actually see behind you, but for only a small field of view. I don't know if whether or not that would be too game breaking, or if it might actually be something new that would add a new competitive element to Halo, but I think that would be something interesting, and also something that not other games I don't think have ever done from my knowledge, but there might be. I just don't know of any others. Next up is time limited challenges. Back in Halo Reach, it was pretty cool. We had dailies and weeklies. It would be cool if they even had monthlies, and even customizable ones, and even community ones, ones that aren't just like for a month, but it's not just you that does it, but the whole community that contributes to it. And again, customizable ones where Halo Reach, they allowed you to do that, to change your options of what kind of challenges you want to do, and it rewarded you based on how difficult it was. I thought that was pretty interesting. I think they should actually 343 should consider this for Halo Infinite, be able to have something like that to keep players wanting to keep playing, and there's always something new to do. Next up is vehicle health meter. It would be really nice if we had a vehicle health meter that was visually displayed just like they had in Halo CE. Halo 2 and Halo 3 used to be connected to your health system, but ever since they took that away from Halo Reach going on forward, it's kind of unfortunate that the only way you can know is just by the vehicle sounds and the visual effects, but you can't actually tell how close it is to actually exploding, which would be really cool if they could add that. It's something small, but it would be something that I think would be really awesome to add into the game. Next up we have here is environmental destruction. Now we're not talking about levels of like Battlefield Bad Company destruction necessarily, or any of the levolution that Battlefield introduced, but you know how like in Halo 3 and Halo Online, you had, you know, pillars that, you know, broke apart and whatnot, and you have crates that just fell apart, one big crate that turned into like 8 mini crates in Halo Online. And then in Halo 3 there was you know, pillars that, you know, you whack them and they break off and whatnot when you're doing the Omega Journey custom game, and you had to get through the map and you had to break those things. I wish we had that kind of like level destruction, or maybe a little bit more evolved version of it, but that'd be pretty cool to see stuff that you can actually break apart and whatnot. Next up is improved Warzone with certain things fixed, like no more core capping. No enemies can just sit outside and wait. Either A, it's going to be a soft kill zone area until you capture all the 3 points, the 3 bases in order to expose the core, or B, there's indestructible turrets that'll wait outside and will shoot you until you've captured all the bases in order to disable them, so they can't just, you know, sit outside and wait for vehicles to spawn and then just jump over after they've been crouching and camping at your base. We need to remove that stuff. Also, we need to make it so that these full team fire teams have to go against other fire teams and can't just beat up on solos, just steamroll. Also, boss point kill stealing is no more a thing. Everyone who's contributed a certain amount also gets a fair amount of points, so no one does this thing where it's in the back and not contribute and just get all the credit at the very end. Making sure that top players also don't drastically rank up so quickly that no one else can keep up, and then they can just keep calling in Banshee after Banshee. Every time they die, they'll have another Banshee ready to go. Also, limited number of vehicles per team so that they don't end up, you know, stacking way too high on one team and the other team doesn't have an ability to fight back. Also, no stats or ranking up in Warzone, because people keep trying to, you know, abuse this just to rank up, and this is not even supposed to be, you know, skill based, but yet they're allowed to rank up, which doesn't make any sense. Also, it'd be a lot nicer to have larger scale battles in these modes, and this is all if they even decide to keep Warzone going on forward into Halo Infinite. Next up here in popularity, we have Hellfighter's Battle Royale mode, which would be, you know, maybe cool if they add this in a later installment for both multiplayer free-for-all and team for Battle Royale. When it comes to the poll results, when I looked into this, not just on my own poll results, but also from 343 industry employees that held their own poll results on Twitter, it came down to 50-50 divide, with one half of the community wanting to see this mode or at least try it out before they judge it, and the other half just, you know, on a hype train, blind, you know, hating this mode before they even, you know, tried to play it and didn't even really have valid points, and just wanted to, you know, not see this mode get implemented because they have, you know, this blind hate for anything that's popular. And to that I say, if you don't like it, just like I don't like the idea necessarily social spaces, I respect that 343 should at least try it, because there's clearly a demand for it and trying it out. And you know, if you don't like it, you don't have to play it, and just let the community as a whole decide from their experience whether this is something that's here to stay or it's gonna go, and not just blindly judge a mode that we haven't even played yet because we're comparing it to other games like PUBG and Fortnite. Because should we instead, you know, compare King of the Hill in Gears of War to see if we want to keep King of the Hill in Halo? They're not the same exact things. So, you know, Battle Royale and Halo might be entirely different and actually might be very cool compared to any of the other ones out there. Next up, I'd like to see new and returning game types. You know, we already talked about Battle Royale, which is just a more massive game type in population and in map size needed, but some games types I hear people mentioning things like gun game, or that I'd also like to see, you know, invasion brought back with that cool offensive versus defensive 3-point defense thing that they had in Halo Reach. I actually like that. I'd also be interested in seeing this mode called Tug of War that I see a few people mentioning. It's like a mechanic of infection where both teams are the infected, and when they kill someone they join the other team, and that's how it goes until it kind of domino effects until there's only one team left. I'm not sure how they would reward the points though, if it's just going to go to the initial people on that team, or if it's just going to go based on kills and that's how you're going to get your points at the end. It would be pretty interesting to see that, but I think that's pretty cool, that kind of idea. That sounds pretty interesting. But yeah, I want to see new and returning game types come in, and I want to make sure that also some of the more core important ones are there at launch and not feel as empty as Halo 5's matchmaking at launch. Next up is improved dual wielding. Bring back, you know, the dual wielding system, but on top of that, you know, be able in custom games and Forge be able to dual wield any weapon like a sniper rifle and an energy sword or 2 rocket launchers. Be able to have fun with that. and at least have, you know, some of the basic dual wielding like SMGs, but not like dual wielding rocket launchers, but, you know, basically what it used to have in the regular matchmakings of Halo 2 and Halo 3, but also even have in the competitive, in my opinion. But I know there's a big argument there because there's competitive players that don't want to learn how to do that and consider it not skill, yet those same competitive people also are the ones that use plasma pistol and BRs and use those noob combos, but yet try to argue that that's skill, but dual wielding is not a skill, even though there are 3 different documents I found out there back in the old days of Halo 2 and Halo 3 that tell you which combos you use in the correct way on the correct maps and how you use map control, but yet they don't want to learn that because they say it's not skill, funny enough. Next up is expanded matchmaking composer. It's already a big hit in Halo MCC. I hear people say they want to have this in Halo 5 in an interesting way that I did a video on, and I think they should also bring this interesting idea over into the Halo Infinite. It was a, you know, interesting idea that I remember throwing back out in Halo 4, and, you know, people didn't think it would take off, but sure enough it actually did take off, and it's actually, people are actually loving this idea of being able to choose the things that you enjoy playing. And what would be really cool is be able to choose the maps and modes you want to play of your preference, be able to have a little more customized option than what they had in MCC, and even select the variations of each map and mode. So remember how in Halo 3 there was snowbound and boundless? What if you only want to play boundless and not snowbound, just a regular one? And also maybe you want to play Crazy Kings, not just regular King of the Hill. Maybe be able to choose which ones you want to be able to play, and this would help 3 for 3 be able to tell what players are liking and what things they need to either improve or remove with modes in maps that aren't being played as much, and even, you know, adjusting having options like JIP or no JIP, both with social and arena, and also I think arena it would just be regular no JIP, but also it'd be awesome if you had a solo option to avoid playing against, you know, group players, so you don't get steamrolled against. And this is something that only solo players can choose as a preference, so you don't get lined up like that. But it may take longer waiting, but it's a risk willing to take, I would think, for some people. And solo players can still play with or against teams if they want to, if they don't activate that option. It's not set by default. You have to actually activate it for yourself. This helps fire teams play against people their own size and not prey upon solo random players and ruin the experience just to rank up. Also, there's no backpacking in this, so that you get lined up with people that you have to just carry the entire time. Maybe the option to line up with people that slightly are above and below you of your actual rank, kind of like what they had in Halo 3, where they didn't have you rank up too high, people that are way too above you or way too below you. You had people that were within your threshold of people you lined up with, so no getting lined up against very high or very low players, and being able to choose whether or not you want friendly fire on or off would actually prove to 3 for 3 that too many people don't like the abuse that happens with friendly fire, with people's team killing to steal weapons or just a troll. And clearly what I've been seeing from the number results, this is something that people really want to see, so I think they should consider this. Next up on the list here is we have more playable faction species, not just bringing back the elites, but it'd also be interesting, like how they mentioned in Halo 3, a lot of people wanted to see the ability for either social or whatnot, be able to play as brutes that were armored and wearing power armor, how they had shields. And other people also want to see maybe be able to play as Promethean soldiers. Other people want to even go as far as even be able to play characters that are just, I think, purely just going to be for custom games and whatnot, like for hunters and jackals and whatnot.
Chief? Cortana?
Next up we have here is in-depth customization. People want to be able to have the same level of customization as Halo Reach did, with a mix of some part of Halo 5, where you can also have unlocked aesthetics for weapons, vehicles, armors, and so forth. And that some of the best armors have to be unlocked through challenges and whatnot, and the others are just bought with cosmetics. That would be the better way of going through it, and the best ones being something you have to earn versus other ones you just unlock casually, either through ranks or through buying it or buying it with in-game currency or real currency. But yeah, it'd be pretty interesting if they could give us a better in-depth customization than just you got a helmet and you got a chest plate. You got like Halo 4, or not Halo 4, Halo Reach, where you had the arms, you had the wrists and so forth. That would be pretty interesting if we can get that kind of level of customization. Next up on the list here, we have improved party leader controls. What would be nice is to be able to bring this stuff back. We've kind of missed it for a while. In Halo 5 5 really doesn't have any of this at all. It would be nice to bring back the ability to force team changes, boot players, change the privacy settings via in-game, like closed, invite, friends only, or open all to the public, force even teams when starting, you know, be able to have that kind of control. Now you can't do that, and that's why a lot of times people just host infection games, because it's almost impossible to host team games because people seem to, you know, end up just jumping all onto one team or causing all sorts of problems, and it just ruins the experience. Next up we have here is bots in multiplayer modes. It not just, you know, Firefight we're talking about here, we're talking about things like in social playlists, and also in custom games and Forge, to have like filler bots in social matchmaking games, so when players quit, in order to keep the matches, you know, player count balanced until a new player joins in custom games that have bots to run for full parties when you don't want to have to wait to get enough people to start, and they act as fillers until new players join in. And, you know, in Forge, be able to play with bots, with some of them well-known modders who used Forges back in the day with AI bots to do some really cool stuff. I'd really like to see this because, you know, sometimes people won't join your custom game until they see a certain player count. So what happens is when you don't have those filler bots in there, they see 3 out of 16 and they don't want to join or something like that. But in reality, if it looked full, people join in and they can actually experience for themselves if it's actually something enjoyable, and they might actually stay in and may easily get more full party games going with real players a lot quicker. Next up is an improved flood and infection game type mix, where they use, you know, flood models based on the species, whether you're an elite or a Spartan, or even, you know, a rampant logic and plague infected Promethean Knight or something. I don't really know how that all lore works, but you get my point here, where you become infected and that you don't just respawn at another spot. In fact, where you die at, you actually go through an animation transformation into a flood right on the spot and attack the survivors. This would be really cool if they had something like that. Next up on the list is improved custom game search browser. Be able to search multiple term words at once, being able to run, so you can have more ability to search the preference you want, and also be able to have void lists, blackout lists that block out certain search results that you filter into the parameters things you don't want to see, like say you don't want to see Forge, or you don't want to see Clan, or you don't want to see Recruit, or Vanity, or Assassination Tower, or Social Space, or Hangout, or Raid. Make sure, you know, that, you know, custom games aren't being plagued by a lot of the Halo 5 issues, like joining and leaving with lag, and having hybrid zombies and first round glitches. That'd be great if they could, you know, get a custom game browser search that works like that and fixes a lot of those issues with custom games, and it makes the experience more entertaining for other players. Next up is improved file share browser. On top of the, you know, being able to, you know, have the improved custom game browser search, it would also be really cool, and a very good way to improve the custom games is to be able to link the maps and modes together to be able to down quicker and set up quicker, with search fields with more criteria being more easily capable of being able to find the files that you need and be able to play it really easily. Next up on the list here we have custom game instant action playlist. Allow players that are the hosts to be able to arrange a bunch of custom games in order that they want, and be able to play one after the other in rotation automatically without having to go back into the, you know, lobby, and, you know, once one finishes, it goes to the next one. This would be a good alternative that, you know, they can fix. You know, they can do this if they can't fix, you know, the loading problems with bookmark saves. They can instead just easily have these all set up and ready to go, and so the next one after that and the next one after that, and just be able to save time. Next up is amphibious warfare. Whether it's underwater or on top of the water, having naval combats with vehicles. And, you know, I knew that this was, you know, a popular idea, but I didn't know how much support that people would vote this one up out of all the others. It seems like people are really interested in this idea, you know, that Spartans just don't die the second they touch water, and that they can actually have underwater engagements, or on top of the water with vehicles that they can fight with, you know, maybe even ghosts that can, you know, go on top of the water. It's, you know, really interesting what they might go with on this. I'm really interested to see if, you know, they might incorporate this for Halo Infinite by 343. Next up on our list here we have space combat. Even more popular than the amphibious warfare is space combat, which would be pretty interesting with you know, the ability to either have space banshees and maybe even a UNSC vehicle, maybe for example the YSS 1000 prototype anti-ship space plane, or the F-41 exo-atmospheric multi-role strike fighter, also maybe even a Forerunner space vehicle. It would be pretty interesting to see what kind of things that people might add, that 343 might consider putting in the game if they decide to have this mode. I'm really interested to see. I saw some fun ones in Halo 5 that I played that were very interesting, and maybe they might incorporate something like this. Who knows? It was really fun in Halo Reach when we were able to play that in campaign, and people wanted to see that expanded upon, but it never did. But maybe that might change. Next up on the list here, we have bigger vehicle gameplay. People want to see more bigger vehicles implemented. People liked, you know, the idea of the elephant that was in Sand Trap. It was pretty cool, but people want to see that expanded upon. They want to see, you know, Phantoms and Pelicans and Spirits and Albatross, I don't even know if I said that correctly, Scarabs, the Mythos, and other big maps to accommodate these big battles. It would be pretty interesting to see how that would be all incorporated. Maybe this is just custom games, maybe it might have some social playlist capability, but you know what, I think it's pretty interesting to see a massive BTB battle go on. That's, you know, pretty interesting idea to think about. Next up we have here Survival Firefight. This is pretty interesting. Don't knock it till you try it. Listen to what you have to say, I have to say here, because this is a mix of other people's ideas all mixed together, and I like it. It's like the mix of it has Battle Royale mixed in with Gears of War, Beast Mode, and Horde Mode. So listen to this. This is pretty cool. I'll probably do a whole video on this going more in depth here, but the idea is you start with a large number of players, either maybe between as low as 30 all the way to 100. You only get one life, that's it, and you have to fight together and stay alive with endless waves of enemies coming at you. It may start off with Cortana's army, or maybe the Banished, and eventually escalates to the Flood coming in, and the map, you know, slowly shrinks over time maybe, and the last player standing wins. Maybe that might be it. But what's the cool part is you start off as simple as a Marine, and what you can do is at, you know, certain like command posts, what they do, you know, in Horde mode is you can buy certain things, but in this case you can buy weapons and vehicles, or even upgrade your character, and you know, maybe respawn back from a Marine to an ODST, and maybe up to a Spartan 4 to a Spartan 3 to a Spartan 2, and going on all the way up. That'd be pretty interesting, and maybe even be able to buy heroic characters and whatnot, like the actual Master Chief and whatnot. It's for people that really get up there. But again, you only have one life, and you have to survive with all the ammo that you can muster up. I think this would be a really cool idea, you guys. I'll probably do a whole video on this because it sounds pretty epic. So I'm just gonna leave it there. I'm gonna let you guys, you know, go with however you want to think about that, but I think that's pretty fucking cool. Yeah, and I'm gonna keep that in there because that's, you know, exactly how awesome that sounds. And even the players that die on the survivor team end up actually just joining the enemy team, and then they can spawn in and, you know, come in as like enemy elites or brutes or whatnot, or Flood characters like a Flood Juggernaut. It sounds pretty cool. So let's see where that goes off to. Again, I will try to do a video on that because it sounds really cool. Next up here is a full SLIPSPACE map editor. It'd be really cool to go back to the days of Halo 2 Vista and Halo Custom Edition with having your own map editor, and that would be really nice, because with this new SLIPSPACE engine that they talk about, it sounds really interesting, and it would be nice to have, you know, levels of like Unreal and Unity, being able to design your maps the way you want to, import models and animations, and just go crazy with the Halo Infinite SLIPSPACE engine. This would be really a cool thing for the PC, and if they could add this maybe in a later update, I don't know, but it would really be a good idea. And since they, you know, confirmed that PC will be available for Halo Infinite, this sounds like this would be a really good time to do something like this and really bring back some of the things that people really love to do, and just really expand upon that. So maybe if 343 does that, this could actually be something really popular. Next up is the return of the Flood. Halo Wars 2 brought back the aggressiveness of the Flood in a way that was really nice, with new types of Flood and new weapons that they were using, and even more disturbing looking Flood that was more horrifying. Bringing this back in the campaign would be absolutely amazing. It's funny how not that long ago, back in the Halo Reach days, people hated the Flood. The even mention of the Flood was like, oh my god, I hate the Flood. But now all of a sudden it seems like people have brought back the hype of wanting to see this come back, and I really would like to see this, you know, brought back into the story and whatnot, because Halo Wars 2 did a really good job at bringing that back with their expansion DLC. Next up on the list here we have PC and Xbox crossplay. We need to be able to have this right at launch. No delay adding it later. This needs to be at launch because what happened with Halo 5 when they finally added Halo 5 to PC and it was so late into the game that everyone had already left by then, and it was not, you know, helping to recover. And then even when you did get onto it, you didn't even have crossplay. And so what happened, instead of having a full 100% community, you had the community divided up. We need to be able to play campaign, forge, custom games, and all the multiplayer features all day one. And anyone that's against that idea does not understand that you can already play with controller on a computer and you can already play with a keyboard on the Xbox. So at this point, there is no thing of, oh, it's an unfair advantage. You're equal at this point. At this point, it's really more you just bought an Xbox or you customize your own computer. At the end of the day, that's all it really comes down to when it comes to the gameplay. You can play with either a keyboard or a mouse on either platform, so it does not matter. So in that case, we really should, you know, really consider the fact that we need to have crossplay at launch and not divide the community up. Because if you have 50% of the community over here and 50% of the community over there, or even worse, lopsided where everyone's on PC and not enough people are on Xbox, no one's going to want to play, and then it's going to die off really quickly on one platform versus the other. So we need to have a full, you know, at launch 100% people be able to play with each other, crossplay, and be able to use their gamer tags and communicate and all that stuff. If we're not able to do that at launch, it's gonna, you know, cause the game to die much quicker. If we are able to play together, it's going to be more enjoyable and less people are going to be leaving right away because they have more people to play with and it won't feel like the community is dying out so quickly. And now we come to our final one. The number one thing here, Forgeable Firefight. Forgeable Firefight sounds like a really great idea, and it's been something that people have talked about since the days of Halo Reach. I think I even talked about, you know, this kind of idea back when I was playing Halo 3, how cool it would be to be able to forge maps and have bots onto it. But when they brought in, you know, Firefight, and people thought the idea of merging the two together, they just thought of these crazy cool ideas you could build, like maybe actually build like that scene from Starship Troopers where you just have a base you have to hold out from and you have all these, you know, enemies spawning coming at you, and you customize the map and the look and everything, and you can, you know, spawn little AI bots to, you know, help you, like some Marines and whatnot. It'd be really interesting, some campaign scenarios that people can build and have a real true forgeable firefight moment. That would just be really cool. Or whether they even do firefight, or whether they just build like some type of mini campaign mission or whatnot. Just have fun with it, and that would be really interesting. And unlike, you know, survival firefight, which is just something you play in matchmaking, this is something you do in your custom games. You build your own ones, you can download from other people on the file share and just go crazy with this idea. I think this would actually be perfect to incorporate all sorts of cool little bot battles out there and be able to, you know, build some cool stuff. Personally, me, if I was able to have Forgeable Firefight, I'd make an epic level, large scale of raid redemption, where the enemies get tougher and tougher. At first they start as grunts, but eventually they get larger, and it's 16 players, everyone gets 1 life, and they keep going up, and eventually like the last wave is just all like hunters or something, just ridiculous, or even Sharkoi, and just go crazy with this, or flood juggernauts, and you have to hold them from getting all the way to the top, and if you don't hold them up long enough, you end up being stuck in a room and they're just coming in there and wrecking havoc, and you pretty much are at a choke point. So I would think these would be really cool. Anyways, that's gonna wrap it up, you guys. These are the lists I took everyone's opinions on, ones that I liked, even ones I didn't like, you know, so it's, you know, mixed up with, you know, trying to put no bias in there, just hearing what everyone wants to say. And I was really surprised at that there's still this big community out there that really wants to see Forgeable Firefight. I remember when it first got brought up into the forums in Halo Reach, I love that idea. I remember I brought it into Halo 5, I mentioned that, and people were like, dude, this is the Halo dream, man. People want to see this. And it's still great to see that this is actually the most popular out of all of them. So anyways, I'm hoping, you know, they might consider this. I'm just gonna wrap it up here, everyone. Again, thank you all for watching. If you made it all the way through this, I know it was an hour long, but I hope I made it worth watching each individual one and made it interesting. Anyways, rate, comment, subscribe, comment down, you know, what your opinions are, you know, rate this if you liked it or not, and, you know, turn on notifications if you want to get more updates. I'm going to plan to do other ones. Hopefully I'm going to do other games like Gears of War 5 or I think Gears 5 it's called now, and Star Wars Battlefront, if they're going to do a Star Wars Battlefront 3, or if they're going to just continue on with Battlefront 2 and not make a Battlefront 3 and just keep updating that game. But anyways, that'll be it for you guys. Everyone, take care, and you have a great day, and see you all when Halo Infinite comes out. And I'll tell you right now, when it does come out, I will be streaming that game when it comes out, the second it does. So make sure, you know, if you want to see my streams when that game eventually does come out, I'll be definitely there to try and stream it. So anyways, see you all later. Peace.
Yeah.